You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles.
I'd like to introduce my mentor, young lady. We will give you just a few minutes of update. My wife will tell you a little bit about our family, our 5 kids, and what's going on with them. We have been married a long time. It's a long time. It's a good thing. Do you know how long we've been married? A long time.
Okay. We have been married for 34 years, and this summer. And we have 5 kids, as Mark said. We have 4 daughters. The oldest is 32, the second oldest 30, 28, 26, and then we have an 18-year-old son. So, and probably something that's a little bit distinguishing for us is that our 32-year-old daughter last year had been diagnosed with cancer. And so we learned a few things. We had her come home and live with us as she went through treatment. And she's a year past in remission and has another year to go till she's completely out of the woods. And she's doing very well. And glory to God for that.
One thing about that experience with our daughter having cancer is that when she was diagnosed, her prospects were not bright. The cancer was a blood cancer. It had spread everywhere in her body, including to her central nervous system. And so we were faced with the likelihood of giving her back to the Lord. And we discovered something that is far more powerful than her recovery. What we discovered over the course of that year of treatment is how rich we are. And it's not things that are here. How rich we are in Jesus, that He's our hope. It's not living a certain number of years. Our hope is not having our kids live to a certain age. Every day is a gift from God to be gratefully unwrapped. And He does not owe us another minute. It was very sorrowful to see her suffer. And it was very magnificent to see her joy, because she loves the Lord so beautifully. And one Sunday morning, before we got the biopsy results, this is when, at this point, we thought her chances are very slim. And I won't give all the details of that, but over breakfast, one Sunday morning before we got the biopsy results that told us it was treatable, we kind of figured it was everywhere, and it was. But we didn't know yet whether it was treatable. So over breakfast, my daughter said to me, "Dad, I know I probably won't survive this. I have lots of dreams, lots of things I've been asking Jesus for a long time. And I want you to know I'm okay. If the worst thing happens and I die, in a much bigger sense, that's the best thing that can happen." I'll go straight to the arms of my forever husband. What could be better than that? She said, I'll fight for my life. We'll trust God. But I know He doesn't owe me another year, or another month, or another day. I looked at her, and I said, honey, I'm 60. It took me 60 years to figure out what you just said. How did you figure it out so quickly? That is beautiful. I could not be more proud of you, no matter how this turns out. It's all true. She's in remission, and we're grateful for every day. It's a gift from Him to be unwrapped. Judy and I thought that we would return the favor. Many of you filled out the survey questions that we sent. And we thought we would return the favor briefly and tell you a little bit about our answers to a couple of the questions, not all of them, but a couple of them, and try to fill you in on our story. So one question that we decided we would answer together: which are each of us more vulnerable to? The seduction of success, being seduced by success in ministry or family, or being shattered by failure in ministry or family. And I think you should go first.
Of course. I think for me, there's been a little bit of both. As far as ministry goes, by the way, we didn't say where we're from. We're from Minnesota in the United States of America. We're from a city, a suburb of Minneapolis. And for many years, we were part of a church that has grown to 5 locations, and felt like church growth was great. We were pretty successful, and I think a little bit in those years there was a little bit of pride and maybe a little bit of stealing the Lord's glory, and for many years we had a pretty vibrant, growing church and ministries, and Mark and I were involved with small groups, and quite a few of the people in our church were involved in small groups. But then, as time has gone on, our church has had people who have left at times, as all of you have had people who have, left for various reasons. And I think as part of the tempering of and the learning and the growth, I think, from having some relationships and hopes and dreams of continuing on with people who we no longer were going to be. I think one of the things is learning grace and compassion and learning how to let people go. That's one of the things that we've learned to do, painfully so. But, just there are many reasons, and God is at work in people, and it's a process for all of us to grow in our beliefs and our understanding of the Word. And sometimes that would take people to other churches, because for them, their journey and their beliefs and convictions maybe were still, evolving and changing, and they just didn't see themselves aligning with us. Or there were many reasons, but that's one of the things I was thinking of that I feel like we've really learned, is to hold a little more loosely to people, loving them, and allowing God, to take them where He wants them in their journey. And it's hard not to be a little bit possessive that way when you've invested your love in them, and and they've chosen to go elsewhere.
I would say that the first 10 years of pastoring, I was more vulnerable to being seduced by success. And I was seduced by success. And the reason that I know I was is that when the success stopped, I was without a self. I discovered that I loved ministry success more than I loved Jesus at that point. So I had much to repent of. It's not that ministry success is a bad thing, it's a very good thing. But it had subtly climbed onto the throne of my heart. And I defined myself by how the church was doing. It was more than caring about it, it was caring too much about it. So, the last 15 years, I would say I've been more threatened by failure. But I'm learning how to, I'm really learning how to fail forward. This is an extremely important concept, I believe. I won't be talking about it anymore this weekend. Although we could shift gears if you want, but it's been so huge for us to learn how to give our very best effort and accept God's sovereignty and the incredible value that He places on human free will with regard to outcomes. This is so difficult to do. To put your whole heart into something that you cannot control the outcome of. Will these people get saved? If they get saved, will they stay and grow up? And will we gain benefit from all we've invested here, or won't we? It's so difficult. I believe you are magnificent examples of doing that extremely difficult work in a more difficult environment than the United States of America is. It's one of the reasons that Judy and I are so honored to be here with you. And because I think the United States of America is following where Europe is, last year I voluntarily stopped being a full-time employee of Evergreen Church and went back to being part-time tent making, because if I'm going to coach other pastors for the next 10 years, that's what it's going to look like more and more. I'm convinced. It's okay if you aren't convinced of that. My plurality in Minneapolis and with the association, John Hopler and others, they think that I'm doing something that will help lead the way for others. Our time is up. Stop. Okay. Won't take more than another hour or so, I promise.
The last thing too, and that last subject, learning to be faithful with many and with few is something else I think that we are learning. And I just really identify with Paul, and that he learned to be content, and learning to be content that our church is going to look however God leads, and we're willing to go however He leads.
One other thing that has become a bigger part of our lives together is in our region of churches in the United States. Judy and I have responsibility to do staff care for about 10 churches, which means when someone on staff is having tension in their marriage, or difficulty in their parenting, or if leaders in a specific church cannot seem to work out a disagreement and they have unresolved conflict. We work with that a lot. We have not asked for this. It has come to us. I think it is because Judy creates so much conflict. And I have learned so much about
Resolution.
Okay, that was backwards, but I just said. So we give about 25% of our time to the church that I planted 20 years ago. And the other pastors there are doing most of the work. And then we spread the other 50% of our ministry time to these other 10 churches. And then I give 25% of my time to support myself. And I have gone back to a sales job. I had a sales job before I became a full-time pastor. The first 5 years that I was a pastor, I was 50% selling medical equipment and 50% pastoring. I sold that business about 20 years ago to my brother, and he has hired me back. But it's straight commission. And so, this is great commission, that's straight commission. Well, we should probably stop. Huh? That's a good place to stop. Would you like to sing a song for them? Me.
So, Mark, maybe tell us where you're going to go to, where you guys are going to go tomorrow.
Okay, very good.
Sorry, Mindy.
Okay.
Just trying to take the cues. Just trying to take the cues.
When you wanted to do that.
Why don't you tell us? Why don't you?
Oh no, I don't.
I could do it on content. But
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes, okay.
Just a brief overview where we're going tomorrow.
Very good. Okay. Here's what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to do 3 sessions. The first session on balancing marriage and ministry is entitled God's Sandpaper. And here's the big idea of that content. And I believe you're under tremendous pressure. I believe that's true. I also believe there's a very, very important understanding that we have to get to and hold on to. Marriage, the pressure of marriage and ministry does not create weakness in me. It exposes my weakness. My biggest problem is not my marriage, and it's not my ministry. My biggest problem is my heart. We're going to explore that first thing tomorrow. It isn't to put guilt on you or shame. It's to face the depravity of every human heart. I do believe that being a tent-making pastor is about the most difficult job in the world. And in order to do it well, that's what I want to talk about tomorrow. The first is to look at your marriage and ministry as God's sandpaper. How is God trying to shape me for His glory through all this pressure, all this sorrow, all these demands? It's what we've been learning for 25 years. And we're not done learning. The second message is entitled 30 Minutes to Sanity. This is my secret weapon. And I'll tell you how I started doing this 30 years ago. It's a 30-minute Psalms quiet time designed to give me an authentic exchange of my emotional waste products and my painful thoughts ventilated to God in exchange for His grace and truth, so that I can be sane under all this pressure and in the face of all this responsibility. The third message is actually fun. And it's very, very practical relative to counseling. One of the most grueling demands of pastoring is that you're either always going into a crisis with someone, or you are in a crisis with someone, or you are coming out of a crisis with someone. Someone is always in crisis. This message on the wise, the foolish, and the evil has revolutionized our life the last 10 years. And the big idea is, problem people don't have to control your schedule if you will learn how not to give them control. This is a fine line. How do you love broken people? That message is all about discernment, so that you treat different people differently depending on where they are on the spectrum of wise, foolish, or evil. And I think you will find it revolutionary, as I have. If you're worried about this content, I've given it to pastors multiple times. They're usually a little worried up front, and afterward they're really happy about it. That's where we're going.